The sink was still wet from where I'd rinsed her cake knife. Chocolate crumbs on porcelain like little graves for the effort I'd wasted. I stood there, staring at a speck of frosting on the faucet, thinking about how many birthdays I'd baked for her by hand. Thoughtful, predictable, like a dog who brings the same damn slipper every morning, wagging his tail and pretending not to notice the leash. Then my phone buzzed, just one line. "Don't wait up, I'm staying at Greg's. We're too drunk to drive." No emoji, no hesitation, just a statement like a traffic sign. Stop, yield, swerve into oncoming traffic. I stared at it for a full minute, not because I didn't understand what she was saying, but because I finally did. I didn't write back. There was nothing to say that wouldn't give her the satisfaction of chaos. Instead, I walked to my office, unlocked the drawer, and opened a folder I'd named Contingency Phase. The label had always sounded dramatic, even to me. Now it felt underwhelming. I copied an address into the rideshare app, booked the pickup, chose a private vehicle, no pool, no distractions. Then I did something she never thought I'd do. I chose the driver. The app gave you that feature if you paid extra, and I'd paid months ago, just in case. The name that popped up? Michael R. I'd flagged him ages ago. Greg's older brother. Estranged, sharp-tempered, allergic to bullshit. The family black sheep with a memory like steel and a deep resentment for both of them. We hadn't spoken since the Christmas blow-up 5 years ago. But last Thursday, I sent him a folder. Screenshots, videos, voice memos. Not mine. Hers. Hers and Greg's. Enough to scorch the varnish off their reputations in one swipe. He wrote back. Tell me when. Tonight was when. 12:10 a.m. That's when the app confirmed pickup. Right on time. She texted me again, this time with a little confusion leaking through the cracks of her arrogance. Did you send this? I didn't answer. I imagined them climbing into that car, Greg probably half drunk, wearing that smug post-high school quarterback expression, the one that said, "I'm still the guy who wins." Her beside him, all lip gloss and lies, thinking she still had the game rigged. She had no idea that every mirror in that car was now a reflection she couldn't smooth talk, that every move they made wasn't just witnessed, it was orchestrated. Michael hadn't said much when I sent him the folder. He didn't need to. Some men don't vent. They wait, they sharpen, they count. And when they move, it's not loud, it's deliberate. I poured myself a glass of the $80 wine she'd bought for her birthday, the one I wasn't supposed to open until next weekend with the girls. I swirled it, sniffed it like I gave a damn, and toasted nothing. Let her enjoy her little night of nostalgia. She thought she was rewriting her past. She didn't know the editor was already working on the final chapter. By the way, if you're reading this far, you're probably part of the 90% who haven't hit subscribe. You know how much work goes into these stories? It's not just therapy, it's trench warfare in prose. And every follow tells the team we're not screaming into the void. So yeah, tap that button. It keeps us dangerous. I set my phone down, left it on loud just for the hell of it. Then I opened the next folder. Phase 2, Family Affairs. Because once the engine started, there was no break. And Michael had a full tank. She always made an entrance, even into the back seat of a rideshare. Her heels clicked on the pavement like punctuation marks to a joke no one else got. Greg stumbled in first, still riding the high of whatever overpriced bourbon they'd toasted her birthday with. I imagine he cracked a stupid grin, probably made some tired joke about chauffeurs for the elite. She followed behind, laughing like the queen of someone else's throne. The door shut, and for a few blessed seconds the only sound was the soft hum of the engine. Then Greg looked up. His buzz dissolved like cheap cologne in the sun. "Mike?" The rearview mirror caught just a sliver of the driver's eyes. Cold, flat, deliberate. "Yep," Michael said, voice steady like a man reading a eulogy he'd rehearsed for years. "Saw the photos and the texts. Nice." Greg's mouth moved, but no sound came out. You could almost hear the neurons short-circuiting. Meanwhile, her smile tightened, then dropped altogether. What photos?" she asked. Her voice cracked. Not a lot. Just enough for someone like me, who's lived with her for almost 2 decades, to know she wasn't confused. She was terrified. Greg's hand dropped from her thigh like it had been caught in a mousetrap. Mike didn't say another word. He just tapped the console, flicked the turn signal, and steered the car out of downtown like it was a hearse with a schedule to keep. Greg's place was 15 minutes away, but the car turned the wrong direction at the first light. Wrong way, man, Greg said, trying to sound casual. It came out brittle. Nope, Mike replied. We're going home. That word hit them differently, because home in this case wasn't Greg's overpriced apartment with the fake granite countertops and fridge full of imported beer. Home was their parents' house, and I knew exactly what that meant. See, what most people forget is how deep sibling grudges can run. Greg and Mike hadn't spoken since 2018 after a family vacation turned courtroom-level screaming match over inheritance, lies, and an ex-fiancé with wandering hands. I wasn't even there, and I still know the details. Everyone does, because their parents never shut up about it. And Mike, he never forgot. So when he turned the car toward the house on Lexington Lane, the one with the wide porch and eyes behind every curtain, I knew this wasn't about revenge. This was about exposure. She leaned forward. Mike, seriously, just drop us be. Sit back, he said, without turning around. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was final. The kind of tone men only use when they've already made peace with the fallout. She slumped back in the seat, clenched her bag like it could shield her from truth. Greg was sweating now, not from booze, but from the unspoken calculation happening in real time. Because in that moment, both of them realized they weren't driving toward safety. They were being delivered. The car pulled into the long, familiar driveway. Porch light already on, silhouettes behind the curtain, the kind of domestic scene that usually ends with hugs and casserole. Not tonight. Mike put the car in park. Greg opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at her like maybe this was her fault, like maybe he hadn't known what he'd signed up for after all. She tried one more time. Mike, please, can we not do this here? Mike chuckled. It wasn't kind. He turned just enough so they could see the side of his face. You had no problem doing it with them everywhere else. And then he got out and opened her door, like a goddamn gentleman. The last sound she heard before stepping onto the driveway wasn't Greg, or Mike, or even the front door creaking open. It was her phone buzzing in her bag, a new text. From me. One word. Because that house had security cameras, front and back, and I made sure the feed was recording. She opened the front door like she expected it to bite her. No stealth, no apology, just the slow creak of someone walking back into a house they no longer owned. The morning light hit her like an interrogation lamp. Her mascara was a tragic riverbed down both cheeks, hair twisted into what was clearly a failed attempt at looking, not caught. Her heels were in her hand. Barefoot on the hardwood, she looked less like my wife and more like a woman returning from someone else's war. Why would you? She started. I didn't answer. Just pointed to the envelope on the kitchen table. Yellow, thick, unopened, sitting where her birthday card had been less than 12 hours ago. She squinted, stepped closer. One hand hovered over it like she was checking if it would burn her. Then she saw the return address on the label, my attorney's name, embossed. Her fingers twitched, then froze. You're not serious. Still didn't say a word. She opened it, pulled out 2 stacks of paper, neatly clipped. The first, 3 notarized copies of our prenup. Page 17 was bookmarked, the clause she once laughed about over sushi. Waiver of spousal support in the event of extramarital conduct. At the time, she giggled. Only a fool cheats on a man who bakes cakes from scratch, she'd said. Guess she found out what kind of fool she was. The second document was shorter, just 1 page, a single line of numbers, showing the withdrawal, all of it. Our shared savings account, drained down to 0, not stolen, transferred, legally, weeks ago. Her breath caught, and then like clockwork, she reached for volume instead of logic. You can't just do this. We were drunk. This is a punishment, not a conversation. I tilted my head. Strange, you didn't want a conversation last night. You wanted Greg. Her phone buzzed again and again. She ignored it at first, but I watched her eyes betray her. The screen lit up with a tidal wave of names from a family that used to adore her. Greg's parents, Mike, a cousin in Florida, 2 old friends who only ever texted about baby photos and potluck dates. She finally grabbed the phone, her fingers scrolled furiously. Opened the messages. I didn't need to read them. I knew what they said. But one caught her breath. Her lips parted and not a single sound came out. She sat down. Her knees didn't buckle. They just gave up. I walked away and left her there, on the bench she used to Instagram as our little breakfast nook. I went to the garage, opened a cabinet, and pulled down an old toolbox. Not because I needed to fix anything, just because I knew the clink of metal and purpose would fill the silence better than whatever excuse she was building. By the time I came back in, she was holding the phone like it was a weapon that had turned on its owner. "I didn't know he'd tell them," she said, softer now. "Mike didn't tell them," I replied. "Greg's mom FaceTimed him. He tried to lie. She saw your earring on the dashboard. It wasn't the messages that broke the dam. It was that damn earring. Pearl drop. Her favorite. She wore them for special occasions. Guess Greg's brother didn't realize cleaning the car would matter. Guess she didn't think betrayal had a scent. I didn't mean for this to, spiral," she muttered. That word, spiral. As if she dropped a coffee mug, not a marriage. I leaned against the fridge and looked at her like someone trying to remember what they ever saw in a painting that had long since faded. "You embarrassed all of us," I said, quoting her cousin's message. She blinked. "That's not fair. Neither was last night." She stood up, pacing now, searching for an escape hatch in a room she'd decorated. The kitchen she used to rule suddenly looked sterile, cold, like a showroom stage, and she was just a tired actress caught mid-scene with no script. "You planned this. All of it." "Of course I did," I said. "You think I was going to keep being the guy who quietly watches you leave lipstick on receipts?" That stopped her, because she had done that 2 weeks ago. Restaurant in Midtown. She claimed it was lunch with Ashley. I checked the location tag. The place doesn't even have menus under $40. Ashley thinks arugula is a skincare product. Her face contorted, rage trying to wear the mask of regret. But regret doesn't come that fast. She stormed down the hallway, muttering, trying to summon something resembling a righteous argument. I went to the living room and turned on the TV, volume low, because I already knew the rest of her day would be loud. She put on the blue wrap dress, not because it was comfortable, it wasn't, but because it was the one they all used to compliment. "You look so elegant in that color," one of them once said. So she wore it like armor, painted on her best version of unbothered, and strutted out the door like she was walking into a magazine cover shoot, not a social triage session. The group chat had gone quieter than usual that week. Normally, by Thursday, there'd be a dozen messages debating bottomless mimosas versus that overpriced vegan spot no one really liked. This time one name confirmed, Julie, and even she had written, "Only for a bit." She didn't think much of it. People got busy, people had kids, errands, migraines, boyfriends. She told herself all the usual lies people wrap around isolation. But when she got to the bistro, the hostess barely glanced up. "Party of one?" She forced a smile. Actually, Julie was already there, sitting stiffly, alone. No menu, just a glass of water and a face that didn't invite hugs. The hug was attempted anyway, half a lean-in, full of desperate optimism. Julie didn't stand. They barely got through the first sip of tea before it started to unravel. "Look, I don't want to be dragged into this," Julie said, voice low but cutting. "Dragged into what?" she replied, cocking her head, still trying to play dumb. Julie reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, tapped twice, and rotated the screen. "Into this." It was a video. Grainy but clear, shot vertically, bad angle, but unmistakable faces. Lake Tahoe, the rental house, Greg, shirtless, her, in that ridiculous crochet swimsuit, sitting on his lap, drunk, laughing, saying things no wife should say when her husband isn't in the room, and most damning, the background, a mirror. Positioned just right to catch the reflection of another phone propped on a windowsill, she stared at it like it was fake, like deep fakes had suddenly come to brunch. "Where the hell did you get this?" Julie sipped her water. "Mike." Her stomach dropped. Of course it was Mike. She always thought of him as the moody older brother, stuck in his own bitterness. Turns out, he was the family historian, and someone, likely Greg, had synced his phone to the family cloud and never bothered scrubbing it. That video had lived quietly for months. Until now, she tried to recover. That was a bad night, a stupid night, but it's not what it looks like. Julie's face flattened. Then you'll be glad to know the group's not judging you for that one night. Pause. They're judging you for how long it's been going on, and how you lied to all of us while we covered for you. The check came before they even ordered. Julie stood up. I'm not here to throw stones. I just don't want to be hit by the debris. She left, didn't look back, didn't even finish her water. She sat there alone, dress suddenly too tight, sunlight suddenly too harsh, wondering how quickly reputations burn. By the time she got home, her phone had 11 fewer contacts. One said a single word before blocking her. Disappointed. The rest just disappeared, like they were never there. Ghosts that once co-signed her curated life. Gone. She stomped upstairs, found me in the living room, watching an old Western. You really sent that video around? She snapped. I didn't even look at her. You're giving me too much credit. That was all Mike. He's bitter. He's a drunk. He's got problems. And yet somehow, he still managed to see you more clearly than I did. She wanted to throw something. I could feel it. But there was nothing she owned in that room anymore. Everything was mine now. Legally, quietly. She didn't scream. She just went silent. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She moved to the guest room. Didn't bother taking her pillow. Just curled up on that starchy rental store mattress, phone pressed to her chest, waiting for a ping that never came. No calls, no texts, no tribe left to rally. Only the sound of her own shame echoing back at her from a guest room she used to say we'd turn into a nursery someday. Instead, it had become the perfect place for a woman to hide from her own choices. The kitchen smelled like rosemary chicken in desperation. She was humming when I came in. Not a real tune, more like the nervous sound a person makes when they want to be noticed without looking like they're begging. She'd set the table. Cloth napkins, candles, wine. The cheap kind I used to joke gave me hangovers from the label alone. She even wore the perfume I hadn't complimented in years, the one that used to mean anniversary, not apology. She turned as I stepped in. I thought maybe we could talk, just start over. I didn't say no, I nodded, took my seat. She smiled, almost surprised that I hadn't shut her down. But then I reached into the side drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. No fancy seal, no dramatic stamp, just the thick, quiet weight of consequences. She froze when I slid it across the table. What's this? Paperwork. She blinked at it like it was in another language. Opened it slowly, maybe hoping it was a letter. An attempt at closure. A confession, some sign that I was still wrapped up in the idea of us. What she found instead were property documents. Her name missing. Every line where husband and wife used to appear now read just one name. Mine. She flipped pages too fast, searching for a mistake. This can't be right. It is, I said. Calm. Measured. Like I was reading off tonight's weather. She looked up, eyes sharp now. When did you? Refinanced in March. Signed it over solo. Bought out your equity. You can't just take the house. I didn't take anything. You gave it to me. The moment you gave yourself to someone else. She wanted to throw the papers. Her fingers twitched like she might. But then she noticed the second set of documents. What's this? Your car, it's paid off. In your name now. Fully yours. She narrowed her eyes. Why would you do that? I leaned back. You wanted freedom, I said. I'm giving it to you. Silence. And not the kind filled with tension. This was the stillness of someone realizing the floor beneath them was made of paper, and every lie they'd built their balance on was soaked through. She clung to the wine glass like it might anchor her. So that's it? She asked. You're just pushing me out? I stared at her a long moment. You've already been out. I'm just catching up. But we haven't talked. We haven't even tried. Every time I asked, you lied. Every chance I gave, you hid. Every girl's night was a chapter in a different story, and I only got the back cover. I made a mistake. No, I said. Mistakes don't last months. Mistakes don't take hotel key cards and matching tattoos. That one hit. I wasn't supposed to know about the tattoo. Lower back, symbol of a band they both liked in college. She got it removed 3 weeks before Tahoe. Too late, she sat back down. This isn't how marriage works, she said, almost laughing as if humor could disarm legality. No, this is how betrayal works. She didn't touch the chicken. She didn't light the candles. She just stared at the table like it had betrayed her too. And the worst part? She still didn't understand. She thought tonight was her idea, her initiative, her olive branch. But like every other move she tried to make lately, it had already been played. I had been ahead of her for months. Every contingency mapped, every signature arranged, every friend who ghosted her, not my doing, just gravity catching up. And now the house wasn't a home. Not to her. It was a reminder. Brick and wood and silent walls that had heard everything she thought I never would. You'll need to find somewhere new, I added, standing. You've got the car, no mortgage, no debt, no chains. She looked up. You think I deserve nothing? No, I said. You deserve exactly what you picked. And then I left her there, alone at the table, the rosemary turning bitter in the air. The invitation wasn't for her, but she came anyway. It was Steve's retirement dinner. 40 years in the same office, loyal to a fault, the kind of guy who still used a flip phone and thought Google Docs was a band. He was one of the few people who'd stayed neutral when everything blew up, kind, decent, loyal, in that quiet Midwestern way. So when he invited me, I RSVP'd yes, without hesitation. I didn't expect her to show. And certainly not dressed like that. Low-cut red dress, hair curled with precision, lipstick like a fire alarm begging to be noticed. She walked into that banquet hall like it was a movie premiere, not a buffet dinner hosted in a Holiday Inn with folding chairs and bad jazz playing on loop. I saw her the moment she walked in, but I didn't move, didn't wave, just sipped my scotch and watched her scan the room for him. Greg. She spotted him near the bar, talking with a few people from the old crew. He hadn't seen her yet. He was laughing, relaxed, maybe the most at ease I'd ever seen him. No tension, no guilt, just a guy sipping a gin and tonic with zero idea he was about to become an involuntary participant in a very predictable performance. She beelined toward him like a missile dressed in chiffon. Greg, she smiled, breathy, soft-voiced, like nothing had happened. Didn't know you'd be here. He turned. And the moment he registered her, something shifted. Not anger, not regret, just recoil, like the memory of something he'd once liked, now stale in his mouth. Don't, he said. Just that one word, low, firm, final. She blinked, lips parting. What? He didn't repeat himself, because right then another woman stepped forward. Younger, confident, maybe 10 years fresher than her, but wearing it with ease, not effort. She didn't glare, didn't size her up. She just slipped her hand into Greg's. A casual gesture, but in that moment, it was a declaration of war. Greg nodded to someone behind her and led his new girlfriend away without another word. She stood frozen. People watched, but no one stepped in. There was no pity in the room, only polite avoidance and the kind of silence that says, we know, we all know. That dress didn't look so sharp under the yellow ceiling lights. She turned, scanning for an ally. Saw me. I didn't smirk, didn't raise an eyebrow. I just raised my glass. Across the room, Mike saw me do it. And for the first time in over 5 years, we nodded at each other. No words, just two men who knew what it meant when illusions finally collapsed. She didn't walk out. She fled. Heels clicking too fast, purse clenched like it was holding dignity instead of lip gloss. She left before dessert was served, didn't say goodbye, didn't make an excuse, just disappeared out the same door she came in. The room exhaled once she was gone. Later that night, Steve leaned over and asked quietly, was that the woman from everything? I didn't answer directly, just smiled and said, she was. She thought hiring a lawyer would be a power move. That I'd panic, scramble, maybe even beg for negotiation once I got the notice. She probably rehearsed the call, voice low, trembling just enough to sound human again. I didn't want to go this far, but he's left me no choice. That sort of thing. The letter arrived by courier. Thick envelope. Firm, expensive stationery. All the trappings of someone who still believed paperwork could reverse reality. She'd retained a downtown firm, all glass walls and overpriced coffee, the kind that liked to intimidate first and check facts later. My attorney called me 2 hours after receiving it. She's challenging the prenup, he said, dry as toast. Wants spousal support, partial equity, full mediation. And? I asked, already bored. I sent them the file. Silence on the other end. Then they called back 10 minutes later, advised her to drop it. I didn't laugh, but I smiled. The file wasn't big, but it was dense, precise. Everything dated, indexed, and verified. Photos from the Tahoe trip, screenshots from her chats with Greg. Yes, the ones with her telling him she wished I'd just die in his sleep so I could finally live. That one always made people pause, especially when it's followed by a video of her climbing into Greg's lap while wearing my t-shirt. But the crown jewel? The sworn statement from Greg's brother. Signed, notarized, including a timeline of when she'd started using him as a cover to sneak around, back when she still had enough shame to lie about it. It wasn't just damning, it was airtight. She didn't know that I'd started building that file before she even moved to the guest room, that while she was playing the role of misunderstood wife at brunch and Botox appointments, I was prepping a legal dossier like I was going to war. Because I was. Her attorney withdrew within a week, no press, no fight, just a quiet email confirming they would no longer be representing her due to irreconcilable case conflicts. She tried 2 more firms, one didn't return her call, the other asked for the documents, and politely declined after reviewing them. Apparently, even sharks know not to bite into a bomb. She tried calling me once, blocked, then texted, "We need to talk about this like adults." I read it, deleted it, no reply. Because that's the part she never understood. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was executing. Every lawyer she went to had the same problem, me. A man with proof, a man with patience, a man who never raised his voice because his evidence spoke louder. She must have realized then that there were no cards left to play, no angles, no last-minute Hail Marys. I'd written the contract, but I never had to enforce it. She'd broken it all by herself, and the law didn't protect the architect of her own collapse. That silence from the courts, that was the final verdict. The moving truck in the driveway was a white monolith against the fading afternoon sun, and for a moment she just stood there, frozen, keys dangling from her fingers like some kind of charm that had stopped working. She wasn't expecting it. Of course she wasn't, because in her mind, the world still turned on the axis of her wants. She still believed this was salvageable, that maybe if she timed her apologies just right or cried at the correct angle, the universe, or me, might let her back in. But the men in matching shirts were already carrying out boxes, neatly labeled, room by room. She stormed up the walkway, her voice sharp and brittle. "What the hell is going on? Who authorized this?" I stepped out of the garage, wiping my hands on a rag. Calm, mechanical, not smug. Just ready. "You did," I said. She blinked, laughed once, short and ugly. "Cute. Seriously. Who? Check your email." She pulled out her phone, still warm from whatever shallow distraction she'd just returned from. Tapped, swiped, there it was. An email forwarded from my attorney. Attached a PDF of a signed rental application, her name, her signature, her ID, all filled out by her last month when she thought she was locking down a private workspace. It wasn't. It was the lease for her next address. She looked up. "You tricked me?" I tilted my head. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. Space. Freedom. A place of your own." "But I know what you thought. You thought it was a temporary escape, a place to clear your head. But that was never your plan. That was mine." The color drained from her face. She looked past me to the movers, now walking out with a box labeled guest room, closet. I'd packed it myself. Every item inventoried, nothing broken, nothing stolen, just relocated. She stepped toward the door like she might stop them. I didn't move. Didn't need to. "You should go inside," I said. "They'll need your help labeling what you're taking." Her voice was quieter now, shaky. "This is insane." "No," I said, folding the rag and placing it on the workbench. "What was insane was pretending this house was still yours to haunt." She glanced back at the truck, then at me, then at the driveway like maybe, just maybe, she could rewind time if she stared hard enough. But everything was already in motion. Her rental unit was clean, new appliances, hardwood floors. She wouldn't suffer, she just wouldn't stay. That was the line I'd drawn, not out of spite but out of principle. You don't get to burn down the house and then complain about the cold. "You think this makes you the good guy?" she asked, voice rising again. I looked her in the eye. "No, it just makes me done." She didn't respond. She just stood there as the movers carried out the last piece. Her jewelry box, a small thing, but heavy, like everything she'd built this mess with. And then, with all the defiance of a child being grounded, she turned, walked inside, and slammed the door. But it didn't echo the way it used to, because the house was half empty now, and none of it was hers. The silence in the house was different now. Not like before, when it was filled with lies that hadn't ripened yet, with the soft static of avoidance humming between the walls. No, this silence had clarity. It echoed. It felt honest. Honest in the way that only an emptied space can be. I stood in the doorway, watching as the last of her boxes were loaded into the trunk. No more movers. Just her suitcase, 2 totes, a laptop bag, and the jewelry case she tried to leave behind until I reminded her, gently, that I didn't want any keepsakes. She walked slower than usual, dragging her heels just slightly over the stone path we used to argue about cleaning. The same path I'd pressure washed the morning after I found the first hotel charge she couldn't explain. Her perfume didn't linger anymore. Maybe she stopped wearing it, or maybe I'd just stopped noticing. I handed her the car keys, not with ceremony, just an open palm, like a handoff at a race she'd dropped out of long ago. She took them and wrapped her fingers around them too tightly. Then she glanced at the boxes in the back seat, the inventory of her exit, tangible proof that a marriage can, in fact, be measured in square feet and cardboard. "That's it?" she asked. I nodded. She looked down, thumb tracing the edge of the key fob. I thought I'd have a chance to explain. I didn't flinch. "You did. You chose not to." She swallowed hard, the kind of gulp people make when their throat closes from regret, not grief. Regret is funny like that, never on time, always overdressed for an event that ended hours ago. She turned slowly, eyes scanning the facade of the house like it might suddenly speak up for her, like the walls might say, wait, she wasn't all bad, but drywall doesn't lie, and memories don't make exceptions. The car pulled up right on time. Same one, same driver. Greg's brother rolled down the window just a bit and nodded at me once. No smile, no comment, just presence. She paused before getting in, hesitated, one hand on the door handle, like maybe she wanted one last word, or maybe she wanted me to offer one. But I didn't. But because every line I could have said had already been spoken. In court, in silence, in every folder, every exit strategy, every calm, measured move I made after her chaos. She slid into the seat and closed the door gently, like slamming it might change the ending. Then she looked at me through the window, not with anger, not even sadness, just vacancy, like a tourist being forced out of a hotel she never paid for. I stood there as the engine started, her eyes still on mine. She didn't mouth, sorry. I didn't wave, because goodbyes aren't owed when the leaving started long before the door ever opened. The car pulled away, and I turned around, walked back inside a house that no longer held her shadow, and closed the door behind me, not to shut her out, but to let the rest of my life finally start speaking. It came on a Tuesday, late afternoon, mailbox empty, sun low enough to throw long shadows across the driveway, the kind of day where you think everything is finally settled. I was oiling the hinges on the side gate, not because it needed it, but because silence, when earned, deserves maintenance. Then my phone buzzed, voicemail. No caller ID, but I didn't need one. Some voices, even cracked and slurred, brand themselves into your memory, like acid on silk. I tapped play. The audio kicked in with the rustle of a car interior, or maybe wind. Then her voice. Hey, I know you probably won't answer, and I get it, I do, but I miss you. I really messed up. Pause. You could hear the wet inhale, like she was swallowing her pride mid-sentence. But that night, we were too drunk to drive. That's why it happened. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. I thought it was just... She trailed off into nothing, and for a second I thought the message ended. Then, I wish I could go back. Just undo it. Then the line clicked off. That was it. No apology, no clarity, no truth she hadn't already drowned in 2 bourbons and a memory too late. But there it was. Her infamous line served back up like rotten leftovers. We were too drunk to drive, the same excuse she used the night she blew up the last bridge between us. And now, months later, it had finally become what it always was, a confession. I saved the message, not because I needed proof anymore, but because some endings deserved to echo. I forwarded it to Mike. No text, no context, just the voicemail. 5 minutes later, he replied with a laughing emoji, then one more text. She's still making excuses. You want me to post it? I didn't type yes. I didn't have to. A few hours later, her old brunch group chat lit up. the one she used to rule like a perfectly manicured despot, the one filled with avocado toast photos, passive-aggressive wedding critiques, and endless humble brags. Mike dropped the audio file in there and captioned it simply, "She was drunk again, but this time she called the wrong man." No one replied for a full hour. Then one message came in, "Jesus," another, "Yikes." Then silence. Permanent, humiliating silence. The kind of social vacuum that no amount of detox tea or boudoir selfies can claw your way out of. I didn't reply to Mike, didn't need to. I just sat on the back porch, drink in hand, feet up, watching the sky bleed orange into indigo. Played the voicemail one more time, not out of nostalgia, but because I wanted to hear what weakness sounds like when it's dressed up as remorse. Then I turned off my phone, not muted, not silenced, off. Because when the game is over, the noise stops. And the winner doesn't need to gloat, he just disappears.